Alex Pereira might be the biggest star in the UFC today, but there's claims that he's being protected by the UFC.
I like Alex. Alex is a savage. Let Alex do what he's doing in his division.
Whether it's at light heavyweight or heavyweight, those matchups that everyone wants to see seemingly aren't going to happen anytime soon, if at all. Instead, the UFC just want to feed Pereira strikers he can knock out, keep him as champion, and keep selling pay-per-views using his name. So, is the UFC actually protecting Alex Pereira? And if they are, what's their plan for him? The number of reliable pay-per-view stars in the UFC may be the weakest it's been for a long time. No one knows if Conor McGregor is going to return, Jon Jones is holding up the heavyweight division, and Chimaev is constantly pulling out of fights. Francis, Masvidal, and Nate Diaz are all gone. Dustin is on the verge of retirement. Adesanya isn't the star he once was, and we could keep going. To say it plainly, the UFC is struggling to consistently put on huge cards. But there's one fighter at the top of their game, fighting every few months and selling pay-per-views: Alex Pereira.
What this man has achieved in such a short amount of time in the UFC is unbelievable. Without a question, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the biggest stars in mixed martial arts.
The Brazilian became one of the sport's biggest stars almost overnight. In just 9 UFC fights in under 3 years, he climbed the middleweight ranks, won the belt, then moved up to light heavyweight, and did the exact same thing. He's had a spectacular pair of fights with Adesanya, headlined UFC 300 on short notice, knocked out a bunch of UFC champions, and more. And that's why the UFC values him so highly.
I cannot take my top drawing light heavyweight and replace him with a not top drawing light heavyweight.
In a time where they're struggling to fill pay-per-view headliners, Alex Pereira is their go-to guy. So it makes sense that Dana White and matchmakers want their cash cow to keep winning. Now though, UFC fans are accusing them of protecting Alex Pereira in a way we've never seen before. The biggest threat for the 205 title, and the challenger everyone wants to see Pereira face, is unquestionably Magomed Ankalaev.
Number 2 ranked Magomed Ankalaev versus the number 5 ranked Alexander Rakic. Ankalaev is 18-1 with 10 wins by knockout. Rakic has 9 knockouts in his 14 career wins.
But for whatever reason, that isn't happening. After all, we've only seen Pereira fight fellow strikers: Adesanya twice, Strickland, Yuri twice, and Jamal Hill. The closest we came was against Jan Blachowicz, who is more of an all-rounder rather than a pure wrestler. And that's the question everyone wants answered. How would Pereira do against a wrestler? And Dagestani one in Ankalaev?
You're a Pereira fan? You like the ideas of where Pereira could go? Things that Pereira could do? But you're objective, you know the sport. You realize, stylistically, that's the biggest threat, right, Ankalaev?
Sure, there's an argument that Ankalaev doesn't deserve the title shot, considering his last victory was against Johnny Walker and not a top contender. But Alex has cleaned out the top 5 at 205. So when you look at the rankings, there's no one else. He's beaten Jan, who's ranked 4th, knocked out Jamal Hill, who's 3rd, and finished Yuri, who's ranked 1 on 2 occasions. Only 2nd ranked Ankalaev remains, so it just feels like the UFC doesn't want to risk Pereira getting wrestled for 5 round straights and lose this incredible momentum he has as a result. And maybe that's why, when lobbying for the fight, Ankalaev has been claiming he won't wrestle under any circumstance.
You know, I could have come out here today and wrestled against Johnny Walker, could have taken him down right away and won with my ground and pound on the ground, but instead, I wanted to send a message. I wanted to stand up and I wanted to knock him out, and that's what I did. Now, for Glover Teixeira, I have a message. Don't waste your time trying to teach your student how to wrestle or grapple. He's not going to need it. I'm going to come out there, I'm going to stand across from him, and I know that he's been knocked out before as a middleweight, so imagine what's going to happen if I meet him in light heavyweight. Trust me, he's not going to feel comfortable there.
Unless he is praying that the threat of the takedown opens up his striking opportunities, we all know Ankalaev would be a fool to not use his grappling. And surely he's aware of that too. Because going out there and saying I'm going to shoot a takedown in the first 30 seconds of every round and lay on Pereira without taking any risks isn't going to get the fans excited. But despite his best attempts, the UFC decided not to give Ankalaev the title shot and instead matched him up with Alexander Rakic, who is coming off of 2 straight losses.
But then the interesting one is the Magomed Ankalaev and then Alexander Rakic fight. Ankalaev thought he was like due for a title shot, and instead he's taking on, yes, Rakic is coming off of a loss at UFC 300 against Prochazka, but he was giving Prochazka the business for a while in that fight. He had been off for a while. He looked pretty good in that one. Here he comes back. He is big for the weight class. He is athletic. He is powerful. Ankalaev is talented and well-rounded, but he makes a ton of mental errors and just bad decisions. And so I thought Ankalaev was going to be the guy against Poatan. Now, he's not.
Instead, the UFC have matched Pereira up with Khalil Rountree, who is ranked all the way down in 8th at light heavyweight. And yet again, Rountree is a perfect stylistic matchup for Alex. He's likely going to stand in front of him and doesn't have the wrestling credentials that Ankalaev has. So it's just fueling the story that the UFC is protecting Alex from his biggest threat at 205 and feeding him strikers to knock out. So what else is left for Pereira, considering he's pretty much cleaned out the top 5 at light heavyweight? Well, UFC fans have a clear answer. Go up another division and take a super fight at heavyweight.
You know, you said there that you're dropping everyone early these days. You know, is it, despite what the punch machine says, do you think you might be one of the hardest hitting heavyweights of all time at this point?
I have good timing. That's what it is. Mate, if any heavyweight hits you, and I'm accurate, if any heavyweight hits you in the face, you're probably going over. Do you know what I mean? And I hit accurately. I hit fast. I make my opponents twitch before I hit them, so they don't see the punch. So probably not. Like, I don't think I'm some crazy power puncher, but if I hit you, you're definitely going to sleep, yeah?
Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic and Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira, with the winners facing each other next. It makes total sense for everyone on paper. The winner of Jon or Miocic gets another super fight before they retire. Aspinall gets a massive payday while he waits for them, and Pereira gets the chance to make history and be the first UFC fighter to win belts in 3 different divisions. But for some reason, Dana White is against the idea and strangely doesn't even think Aspinall deserves these big fights, despite being the interim champion.
I mean, this guy is a scary dude, and he looks like the future of the heavyweight division, right? But at the same time, he's working his way up. He's climbing up the ladder, and everybody's like, he deserves this, and he deserves that, and he doesn't deserve anything. He looks great, and he looks like he's going to be the guy. You got Stipe and Jon, who have paid their dues. They've been here forever. They fought everybody. They fought all the fights that you could possibly fight.
So I should move Pereira up, a guy who's fucking superstar in that weight class and looks great. And, well, you got Jones fighting Stipe. Whoever wins that, they fight Tom Aspinall. Where does he fit into this right now?
There is a lot going on. There is a lot going on for you. I agree with that.
And in equally bizarre fashion, Dana is only content with Pereira moving to heavyweight if he clears out the division at 205.
You know, this guy's a killer. Everybody loves him. To think about him moving up to heavyweight, when you talk about the guys like, you know, Cyril Gane, Aspinall, Volkov. I mean, these guys are monsters.
Actually, what a fight him and Cyril Gane would be, actually, right? Because both strikers like going at it.
Yeah, Cyril Gane's huge, man. He's huge. He's athletic. He's powerful. I like Alex. Alex is a savage. Let Alex do what he's doing in his division. And you know what? If he wipes out the entire division and we're sitting here going, who's next? Then maybe you let him move up to heavyweight and do some type of super fight there.
But hasn't he already done that? Literally, the only fight at light heavyweight for Pereira that isn't a rematch is Ankalaev, which they clearly don't want to give him because they've let Rountree jump the queue. So the UFC aren't letting him fight at heavyweight because it's risky. And they won't give him the one matchup at 205, where people think he may lose. Perhaps Dana's content with the heavyweight landscape as it is? Or maybe he just doesn't want to put 2 of his biggest names against one another and risk their star power going forward. But the UFC has always claimed they'll put on the fights people want to see and worry about the rest later. This time though, it seems like they don't want to risk Pereira at heavyweight and just want him to remain at 205 pounds. And interestingly enough, while Alex has shown some interest in going up to heavyweight, he seems pretty comfortable at light heavyweight for the time being.
O Aspinall estava falando sobre lutar contra você. O que você pensa sobre isso?
Bom, o que eu tenho para falar é que para mim não interessa agora nesse momento estar lutando com ele. Na verdade, o peso pesado não é o meu objetivo, senão é o meu foco principal.
At 37 years old, Alex understandably doesn't want to fight for an interim title at heavyweight. He's at a point in his career where only competing for undisputed gold does make sense, even if a fight against Aspinall would be huge. It means that if he wants a shot at the heavyweight title, he'll have to wait for Jones and Miocic to finally meet, hopefully at the end of 2024, and then for Aspinall to get the shot sometime after. If all things go according to plan, Pereira is looking at the summer of 2025 if he wants to win a third belt and do what no other fighter has. So, what on earth is he going to do in the meantime?
And when Ankalaev got signed with Raychek and you took those guys off the board, you understand that Jamal Hill was just the last opponent. You understand that Prohaska's had a couple of shots already. You start looking at Pico, who is Pereira gonna fight? That's the biggest question. If it's not gonna be Ankalaev, who is it gonna be?
Well, some fans have one last idea: champion versus former champion. But this time, it isn't Alex Pereira who's moving up a division, it's his old foe ready to write one final chapter in their rivalry, Israel Adesanya. For Izzy, it's by far the biggest fight available to him.
This guy, first fight in China, I thought I won. Anyone who's watched the fight, these casuals don't, these plebs don't. I thought I won. Even he thought I won till he got his hand raised. Okay, cool. Second fight, again, I'm beating his ass and he gets me. And again, New York, beating that, rocked him, took him down, held him down, beat him, and he gets me. It wasn't about proving it to anyone else, it was about myself. I know I can beat this guy. So that Miami one, I was in a different place. I had to like tap into some darkness for that camp. People who knew me, I was different. I was like, ain't no way this motherfucker beat me 4 times. And it's about the story. So now I beat him once. How ironic. I beat him once, but then watch this. If I fight him again, I knock him out, what's that? What are they gonna say?
Oh, you already did that.
Oh, it's 3-2. No, best out of 7. I'm like, bro,
The two have arguably the greatest rivalry in the UFC today, and while Alex is up 3 wins to 1 loss overall, it's still 1-1 in MMA.
For me, I'm so happy with what he's doing right now. I'm like, bro.
Can you believe how good this dude is?
I know.
He fucking these dudes
I fought
up.
him 4 times.
He beat the shit out of these dudes. That's crazy, bro.
Bro, every time I fought him, I knew I could get him. Till he got me. And then now here we are. I hope he retires.
He killing these dudes.
When I told him good luck, I said he went up to 12, I was like, all of you, good luck.
Sure, there's a bunch of options at 185 for Adesanya, but settling the trilogy once and for all trumps them. For Pereira, it's ideal as well. He gets a huge fight while he waits for the heavyweight division to move along. It gives time for new contenders at 205 to emerge, and the UFC gets yet another massive pay-per-view headliner. The only caveat is that should it happen, and should Izzy win, that potentially ruins Pereira's plans to go up and challenge whoever out of the heavyweights is left standing. But the UFC clearly wants to protect Pereira from potentially losing a boring fight to Ankalaev. And with their heavyweight plans being set, you have to do something exciting with him. After all, he hasn't got a ton of tread left in the tires. So what better way to do that than against his arch enemy? And to find out why so many fans turned on Izzy throughout his rivalry with Pereira, check out my full breakdown on where things went south for him.